Nació. Happy anniversary! Happy anniversary! Happy anniversary! Happy anniversary!
Stop.
Happy anniversary! Happy anniversary! It's our 5th anniversary!
I was trying to talk and you kissed me. Stop. Woo!
Kid free! No Ellie tonight.
Yeah. So we decided to make the video that we told you we were going to make a week ago.
A week ago.
So we're going to make it tonight because Ellie's not here. Oh, you look taller than me. I got to sit up. She's sitting on her knees. It's not fair. I'm taller. I promise. So, last week we posted, what questions do you have for us? Now's your time to ask. On our next YouTube video, we didn't say it would be a week later, we will answer your questions. We'll record tomorrow morning. So you have between now and then to comment below with anything related to the AT, our bike trip, van life, or about other aspects of life. We got 47 comments, many more questions. Many people commented with multiple questions. So we're going to scroll through, and if we don't get to yours, that means that it was either too similar to another one, or too awkward to answer, or some other discriminatory reason. I don't know.
These are public. You can go and read them yourselves if you want to.
Yeah. But we'll do our best to answer them. We're just starting from the top?
Yeah, so we'll just start from the top.
Why did you want to live in a van? We wanted to follow the idea of having like an adventure-based lifestyle, and having a home and the responsibilities of maintaining and paying for that home just didn't really line up with our desire to travel and to adventure and just to minimize our possessions and lifestyle. So we decided to just jump into a van, and it's coming along.
We're really bad at committing to homes too, so we've been
married. This is our 5th anniversary, and we've been in like 7 different living accommodations.
Yeah, 3 houses in just like a year and a half in Greenville, and then like we moved around a couple other times, like to Washington State, and so we just decided that for our lifestyle, like even the house we owned, we didn't even live in a year and a half. Like we bought a house and did not live in it even a year and a half. So we're just not good at committing to houses.
How do you deal with diapers? We no longer deal with diapers, thankfully, except for at night should we put her in one to sleep in. But on the trail we dealt with diapers. We did mostly disposable G diapers. So they were a cloth liner. We have a video about that.
Yeah.
Look back at our videos. We go full video into diapers. Curious about your milk supply. My milk supply really wasn't affected at all by being on the trail. But they're probably asking about yours. We've been discussing how to get more views on YouTube, and we found that, you know, all the girls that get a lot of views on YouTube, and they show their boobies a lot, and we're not showing my boobies. But we're not going to show boobies. Hopefully you'll watch our videos anyways. But yeah, how was your milk supply affected?
My body took like a week to 2 weeks to adjust, where my milk supply tapered off a tiny bit, but was still like pretty normal. And then after that adjustment period of like a week to 2 weeks, it was like my body totally adjusted and it was fine. There were 2 days specifically where my milk supply just kind of plummeted because I overdid it without drinking enough and eating enough. But 2 days out of 6 months, that's all that happened. So it wasn't affected. Like I feel like your body just naturally learns how to adjust. And as far as like a trail diet goes, we tried to eat really good, especially in the beginning, and then like the last couple months we were just so hungry all the time. We didn't eat as good quality or like as much fresh food, and we resorted to like a lot of like Snickers bars and stuff like that. But my milk supply still stayed the same. I mean, the quality probably wasn't as good, but I still felt like breast milk was still like the best option for nutrition for Ellie. Even as an 18-month-old, that's just my view. So
Real quick, was nursing a burden or a huge asset as a thru hiker with a baby?
it was never a burden because my babies will always be the most important thing for nutrition, and so it was either like nurse on the trail or like don't go on the trail. Like that just like wasn't an option for me. So
It was an asset.
yeah.
We were wondering what you all do when you see wildlife on the trail, snakes, bears, etc. We look at it and we enjoy it, and Ellie enjoyed the wildlife a lot too. She learned to say deer, and eventually any four-legged animal was a deer. And when she saw a four-legged animal, whether it was a dog or a cow or anything, it was just deer. Deer. But
She
no.
she naturally knew that things like snakes or spiders are just not something you go near. We've never taught her that before. It's just like a natural inclination that those things aren't things that you like want to touch or want to play with or something like that. She just had this like natural fear of them, so that was a good thing.
Yeah, we only saw venomous snakes 3 times, 2 rattlesnakes and then a little cluster of baby copperheads. None of them were even moving. They were all totally still, curled up beside the trail. We saw lots of other non-venomous snakes, but
There's this app called Gut Hooks, and people can leave comments in there, and there were a couple times where at tent sites or shelters, people would leave comments like, hey, a copperhead lives here, hey, a rattlesnake lives here, and we would just avoid those sites. Yeah. We wouldn't even take breaks at them. We were really thankful for people that left comments like that.
Yeah. Bears, they were running the other direction every time we saw them. I saw 6, Becca saw 1. Like I said, they were...
We sing and talk a lot on the trail.
Yeah, we sing and talk a lot.
The next one, what are your top 3 tips for long hikes with a baby? My first most important one would be staying flexible. Just make sure your schedule is flexible, your route's flexible. It's the most important thing. Maybe another one.
Start small. That's something we say all the time. Just, you're asking about big hikes. That's great. Go do big hikes, but start small. Don't just jump into a multi-day trip with your baby. Get them used to it and acclimated to being in the pack for miles in a day.
Yeah, and then the third thing for a big hike is probably pack more than you think you're gonna need. So, like, know the water sources. I'm talking specifically about like water and food. So like know the water sources, and if you're not gonna pass one, like bring extra water, bring extra food. And make sure, like, even if there's no forecasted rain, that you take like rain gear for yourself and baby, or just like appropriate layers for that season of the year.
This one is a bunch of questions, so we'll answer them sort of fast. Is Baxter the only Baxter State Park, that is, the only place you had to find a sitter for Ellie? Yes, she was not allowed to go above tree line in Baxter State Park, so there was 2.5 miles to the summit of Katahdin that she wasn't allowed to do. Did you ever carry a hand pump and bottle? No. Did you do much interacting with other hikers at camp or try to keep your distance? We interacted, both. We interacted with campers, with other hikers, not as much as we could, but pretty frequently. We really enjoyed that part. I mean, you don't go through hike the AT to be alone.
No.
We've heard that before, and you need to go do the Benton Mackay Trail or the GET or something that is obscure that nobody really does if you want to be alone.
The AT is a pretty social trail.
It's a pretty social trail. So yeah, we interacted a lot, but we did, however, try to sleep away from other people, just in case Ellie woke up.
Did you have other hikers make snide or judgy remarks? Yes, but like really infrequently. Like I would say 99% of the comments were positive and encouraging, and then there was like...
And most of the time, we would hear things that people didn't mean for us to hear. Like, we walk up to a shelter and somebody sees that we have a baby and they sort of don't know that we can hear them, but they say, oh, shelter's full, just to their buddy, sort of joking because they didn't want to sleep with a baby, which is totally understandable, and also why we just had the mentality of not sleeping in shelters or close to other...
But the way we reacted to that is when we usually just like play the rule of like kill them with kindness. We were just like super nice and like were super positive and like tried to get to know them and talk to them anyway, and like we did not let that ruin our time or like make them feel bad for their thoughts either.
How did you balance time in and out of the pack?
We would just take Ellie out every hour. We would hike as fast as we could while she was asleep, and then take like a really long break so she could play and explore. And what's the next part of the question?
Was it difficult to balance?
I don't think it was difficult to balance because we stretched our days out like really long. Like we were taking as long of breaks as we were hiking.
Did you have a lot of 0 days to balance it out, and did she get restless or unhappy? Yeah, there were times that she would get restless or unhappy, but again, in general, if we kept on somewhat of a schedule and she knew what to expect, she did fine.
And she didn't mind being carried all the time, and we would like
that
she likes being carried. Like even now, she just likes being worn in a backpack. But we would sing to her, and she loved like if she got like restless or unhappy, and we did for whatever reason need to keep walking, like it was getting dark or something, we would just sing or like play games or talk to her. Like she's very social. She likes to talk to her parents.
Did you have a lot of 0 days? No, not on. So there was a break that we had to take between Springer and Katahdin because Katahdin wasn't open by the time we got to Springer. But otherwise on the trail, it was like 9 0 days that we took total, and I think 7 or 8 of those were because the weather was too bad for us to go out. So most of our zeros were weather, but it really wasn't fun to zero with Ellie. That sounds bad, but like she did much better when we were on the trail and she could nap. If we were off trail, she wouldn't take naps, and it was just, and we would chase her around, so it wasn't restful for us. It wasn't restful for her. It was just easier for us to be on the trail.
And we like to be frugal too, and so we didn't want to spend 2 nights in a hotel or hostel because that meant paying for 2 nights. So we would just usually just do 1 night and like do a half day in and half day out.
Those are called Neros.
Yeah, and so that would save money too. So that's a tip for like saving money on the AT.
Yeah. Did you use Permethrin on Ellie's gear? Yes, we applied Permethrin in Maine, right when we started up again in Maine, but mainly we didn't use those layers that we put Permethrin on very much, more so in Maine for the mosquitoes. Bug netting was the best way. So we got a lot of questions about how we dealt with bugs and insects. For mosquitoes, it's bug net. It keeps them off entirely. You don't have to worry about chemicals. But then when we got into tick country, it was we Permethrin on, and that was the only way to handle it. The ticks got so bad around Connecticut and Massachusetts that every night we were doing tick checks all over one another's bodies, and these things were tiny. Like they were so hard to see. You had to look at every little freckle and fleck of dirt on the other person's body and like move it to make sure it wasn't a tick. Lyme disease is a real threat for thru hikers, and there were many thru hikers that we met that had contracted Lyme disease and either had to take a long time off and were able to come back, and then others that it ended their thru hike. And while that was a concern, obviously, but the long-term effects of Lyme disease were a much greater concern for us. So yes, we did use Permethrin on our gear, our clothes and packs, but also on Ellie's clothes as well. Favorite part of the trail, what was our favorite? We had 2 equally favorite parts.
So up north it was the Whites, and then down south it was Roan Highlands.
Yeah, both of those were equally favorite in our minds. What clothes do you all wear hiking? It changed a lot throughout, but in general we like to wear wool shirts. It keeps smell down, wicks away sweat really well. What did we sleep in? When it was cold, we just slept in base layers. When it was hot, we didn't really wear any clothes. How did you get into towns? How often did you stay in hotels or inns or hostels?
I would say if you had to like do an average, we probably stayed in town like every 5 to 7 days. And then
how did we get there?
So there's this awesome organization called Hike It Baby that we were already a part of in our local branch. And so the founder, Shanti Hodges, she called me and said, hey, like we heard what you're doing, it's so awesome. What if I connect you with the branches along the route of the AT, and then they can help you with whatever you need to. And she was like initially thinking of like bringing us food or just like being friends on the trail, like coming to hike with us. But then once we actually got out there, we realized the biggest thing we need out here is a ride into town, because like a lot of thru hikers, when they're going into town, they just thumb a ride with anybody, and we weren't comfortable with doing that. And so we would coordinate with Hike It Baby branches along the AT to pick us up and take us into town, and it was super helpful. So they had car seats, and then they had toys that Ellie could play with and other kids for her to interact with. And so she had a lot of like kid interaction on the AT, like because of Hike It Baby families, which was super fun. But yeah, so then I have to be like 100% honest. There were a couple of times where we were just like desperate to get into town. I remember one specifically, like there was a huge storm coming up in Maine, and so we did, one of the hostel owners came and picked us up and had no way of getting a car seat, and so we did ride with him back to the hostel. And other than that, we really didn't. We did it maybe a couple other times, like on back roads, but yeah, we really like weren't.
We tried to avoid it.
Yeah,
as much
we
as
weren't
could.
comfortable taking Ellie without a car seat, only when it was like totally necessary. So.
Yeah. There were a couple of those times. Who's your favorite thru hiker other than yourselves to take a photo with? That's from Lost. You know.
You know.
You know.
Videos are great. What software do you use? We use iMovie, which is free with any Apple product.
Yeah. It's not super technical or advanced. Becca's just really good at it.
Yeah. It's great for me. How did you even begin to do something like this?
Sorry.
The most unnerving thing for me is letting go on the financial aspect. How did you plan and successfully make it through your trip? I know you said you sold your house, etc., but have you had to rely on family and social media support to do this? We
don't make any money from social media.
We make 0 cents whatsoever off of Instagram.
How friendly is the culture towards kids in general? In general, very, very friendly and super excited to see kids on the trail.
Yeah, not just Ellie. We had friends that had their 5 kids with them. Their ages like 8 to 16, and so the trail community really welcomed them. But I will say it has a lot to do with the parents that are taking the kids. It really doesn't have anything to do with the kids.
Not that we were awesome. We're not saying that.
Yeah, but if you're,
But if you're a jerk, no one's gonna like your kids either. I'm terrified of norovirus, as you should be.
You should
terrible.
be. It's bad.
But if you don't want norovirus, my encouragements would be to not hike in the bubble. Either be ahead of it, or if you have to, be behind it. How did you feel leaving comfort behind? How did you know where to start?
Leaving comfort behind was comforting.
Yeah.
Like, knowing that we were following our dreams, like, there's comfort in that for us.
How do you turn back the clock so I can raise dirtbag kids? We'll get back to you on that one. I'm not sure if there's a way to do that. If we figure it out, we'll let you know.
Do you have grandkids? You can raise dirtbag grandkids.
Yeah. How often did you bathe? Pretty much
just when we were in town.
When we were in town. How many changes of clothes did you bring? We didn't bring changes of clothes. We brought single layers of everything. The only extras we brought of anything were socks, and then we even still only brought like one extra pair each.
I had 2. I have to say, I brought 5 pairs of underwear. I like clean underwear.
This is in reference to our upcoming Great Divide ride, asking about gear and bikes and how Ellie will be riding along. We'll get into the specifics of that in an upcoming video. We're super excited about that. We're finalizing just a few details on that though. Favorite campsite on the AT. This one is easy. It's not a very popular necessarily site, but the one that stands out every time we're asked that is a little campsite called Sims Gap. It's on a bald in Virginia, just north of Rice Fields, north of Parisburg. And for whatever reason, we just loved that. It was so beautiful. It was the time of day we got there. It was a big open bald for her to run around. We loved camping on the balds. Anytime we got a meadow or a bald, we got to camp out. We enjoyed camping there. The downside to a lot of those places is that there wasn't water. So we had to haul our water into those sites.
Do you think this next adventure will be harder or easier than the AT?
Next being the Great Divide.
Yeah, so we have come to the conclusion that mentally it's going to be easier because it is going to be closer to like 8 weeks, not 6 months. And so like the mental game of time is going to be a lot easier this trip, but
there will be more challenges.
There will be totally different challenges. We will be in like grizzly territory. We will be in like some like harsher environment.
Less
conditions.
Water.
Yeah, so there are like totally different aspects, but I think like as far as physically challenging, it's might be similar. So we'll see.
Might be similar physically, but
we'll see. We don't
much less time. Hopefully.
We don't know yet.
Interested in seeing a tour of the van? That will come. We promise. The van is not done. We're happy to answer specific questions, but there's so many amazing conversion resources out there for you guys that to even try and compete with that, there's just not really any point in us doing that. So plenty of resources out there. If you have any specific questions, we're happy to answer those. Was Ellie a good sleeper before you headed onto the trail? No, not really.
Ellie has never been a good sleeper from like day one to now.
She's not a terrible sleeper. She just like wakes up and like, mommy.
Yeah.
She's not a terrible sleeper, but she wakes and stirs a fair amount. How did you finance your trip? We sold our house in Greenville, South Carolina, and that funded more than enough of our trip. Funniest thing that happened on the AT. There are a lot of funny just sort of inside stories that, you know, would maybe embarrass some thru hikers if we told them publicly. But yeah, we'll just probably keep that one to ourselves and just enjoy those thoughts to ourselves.
If you're gonna be a future thru hiker, you'll come up with your own stories that like it's like what happens on the trail stays on the trail, and leave it at that.
Most of the stories that are the funniest are mine involve other people, though. So not necessarily things that we did or happened to us. So.
And also frequently involve alcohol as well. So not us. I don't even drink, but
other people.
But other people.
Do you have any thoughts about when people say taking a baby on the AT, a bike trip, or living in a van is dangerous or irresponsible? Yes, we do have many thoughts about that. No, but yes, we have many thoughts. And honestly, it's a fear that a lot of people have of the unknown. People are very acclimated and adjusted to thinking that driving 80 miles an hour in a car down the interstate with tractor trailers around is safe.
As long as you're in a car seat, you're safe.
Yeah. Obviously, we have a lot of thoughts about that. We feel like Ellie is pretty darn safe out there. You know, she's not going to daycare and being exposed to germs that are very easily spread, like the flu that's been just terrible this year. I'm moving at 2 to 3 miles an hour. She's just not, you know, there's not a high risk for big accidents like that. And most of the wildlife issues or concerns that people had, they were easily manageable. There are definitely risks involved in living an adventure lifestyle with a baby, but with experience, you can manage those risks. You can't get rid of the risks, but being able to manage risk is a huge asset in taking yourself out, but more importantly, taking out your family.
And we've always found that the pros and like the positive outcomes always outweigh the like the negatives or like the what ifs, and we always ask ourselves the what ifs, and we like to say like we prepare and plan for the worst and hope for the best. Did you receive any questions or concerns from family or friends before starting? That's a question.
Yeah, we did, but again, with our experience and just our thoughtfulness that we put into it and the way that we were able to answer those questions, most of their concerns were alleviated pretty easily.
Yeah. Alright, so Damien asks, I am curious what aspect of the AT hike you were worried about the most before you left and turned out to be the least of your concerns. In other words, what did you over prepare for either mentally or physically? And I think both of us would agree that while the resupply boxes that we sent ahead of time were necessary, we also went a little overkill on them. So in our resupply boxes we had diapers, wipes, breakfast, lunches, dinners, and all of our snacks. And that was just like a little over the top as far as like volume goes, and also just like preparing. It was just a lot. So if we could go back and do that again, we would have just done diapers, breakfast and dinners, and then left lunches and snacks to get in town.
The only other thing that I could think of that we overthought or were a little concerned about was just Maine and New Hampshire. I mean, Maine and New Hampshire are not like to be messed around with. They're definitely difficult.
Austin Hyler, we know them.
Yay!
Have you
Baby Z.
Little Zia. Have you considered a tandem bike for your next adventure?
Yes.
We have?
We have. I have.
I haven't.
The reason we don't want to do a tandem bike for our next adventure is to have the ability to just send one of us in to get a resupply or to go into town or just to ride at different paces. We hike
at separate paces
for so much of the trail. Like, that's one thing people probably don't understand is that we hike together some, but we also hiked separate a lot. And we will probably ride separate a lot because that's just the way we are.
I walk really slow. I walk so slow.
And I walk really fast. Like,
so I imagine it will probably be similar on our bike trip, which I'm glad we know that about each other now. So that's why we don't have a tandem bike.
Yes, we know y'all love them, but not for us. That's all on this one. If you don't mind, subscribe to our channel and like this video and keep watching our videos. We love making content for you guys. But yeah, we'll see you guys next time. You got anything? Hey! Give me another one. Mwah!
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Bye.